Hi everybody, today I'm going to walk you through contributing to the ESCIP project. Specifically, I'm going to show you how to fork the ESCIP GitHub repository and make edits and open a pull request that can then allow us to incorporate your edits to an existing notebook or an addition of a new notebook into the project. Okay, so there's a Google Doc here with these steps. I'm going to include this Google Doc in the video description that will be hosted on YouTube so that you can access it to read along. But I'll also start by walking through these steps before I jump into the demonstration. A couple of prerequisites. So in order to do this, you're going to need to have your own GitHub account. So make sure that you have a GitHub account before you start. You're going to need a way to use Git and interact with GitHub on your computer. In this video, I'm going to be using GitHub Desktop. I have a link to it in this document. You can also just Google GitHub Desktop, and you can download and install it for free on Windows or Mac platforms. And you need to have a way to open and edit Jupyter notebooks, and I will just be using Jupyter on my computer to do that. Okay, so those are the prerequisites, so make sure that you have that taken care of before you get started. Once you get started, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to go to the ESCIP GitHub repository, and you're going to create a fork. The fork is going to basically copy the current state of the ESCIP repository to your GitHub account. And so this is now a version of the ESCIP repository that you can make changes to because you own it. Once you have that forked version in your GitHub repository, you're then going to use clone that repository to your computer so you can make edits to it. I'm going to use GitHub Desktop to do that. One note is that there's a specific branch that actually gets rendered as the ESCIP Jupyter book, and that is called the JPOG branch. That is the default branch, so you should have no problem, but you may want to make sure that you are cloning the JPOG branch. I'll point that out in GitHub Desktop. All of the Jupyter notebooks that get rendered as the Jupyter book that ESCIP has go in this folder called Notebooks. I'm just gonna, since I keep referring to the Jupyter book of ESCIP, what I mean is when I go to the ESCIP webpage, this is a rendering of the repository in the form of a Jupyter book, and so the Jupyter book has different chapters, and the chapters are renderings of Jupyter notebooks that can be looked at in a sort of static form or interacted with, for example, in Colab or Binder. So that's what I mean. So I'm assuming that you want to add or edit one of these existing chapters. If you're adding a new chapter, in order for it to be able to be rendered, you need to also edit our table of contents. There's a special file in the top level directory of the ESCIP repository called _toc.yaml, and there's a simple addition that you must make to this file for each new notebook that goes in there in order for it to render as a chapter, and I'll show you how to do that too. Once you are done with those changes, you should push your changes to your forked repository first, and then from your forked repository, you can open a pull request. And then the pull request is going to trigger someone on the ESCIP repository to review your notebook and either accept it as is or suggest changes so that it can be further improved before it's incorporated into the project. Okay. So let's go ahead and get started. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I am going to go to the ESCIP repository and I'm going to create a fork. So here I am, this is ESCIP's GitHub page, our GitHub account, and I'm in the repository escip.github.io. This is what I want to make a fork of. So I'm going to click this button in the top right hand corner called fork, and it's going to pop out a little menu that is going to tell me the repository name and who's going to own this fork. Fully Lab is my account, so I'm going to be the owner of this fork. Here's a little description, and this is going to copy the JBook branch only, okay? And that's the branch that I want. So this looks perfect. I'm going to click Create Fork. Okay. So it's going to take a minute to create the fork. But now I have the fork, so now what I see is I have fullylab/eskip.github.io, and it is forked from eskip/eskip.github.io. So this indicates that now I am the owner of this fork. I can make changes to it. So the next step I'm going to do, the next piece, is I'm going to clone this to my computer using GitHub Desktop. So I'm going to go ahead and open GitHub Desktop. And in GitHub Desktop, I'm going to go File, Clone Repository, and I'm going to try to find in github.com. I'm already logged in through GitHub Desktop to my GitHub account, so this is showing me the different repositories that I have in my account. And here we go. I have fullylab/eskip.github.io. If you have a lot of repositories, and I have, I don't know, a moderate amount. I'm sure there are people that have many more than me and people that have less. If you're having trouble finding a repository, you can start searching in here. So I just typed ESC and it's popping up, Fully Lab, ESCIP. Okay. So I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to clone. If this is the first time you've ever used GitHub Desktop, you might want to pay attention to the local path. This is where the repository is going to show up on your computer. I have a folder called code, which is where all of my GitHub Desktop clones end up, so I will know where to look for it. So I'm going to just go ahead and click clone and let it do its thing. Okay. So there we go. Again, it's moving rather slowly, but it's done. Okay. You have changes on this branch. What would you like to do with them? So I'm going to keep this thing highlighted because ultimately my goal is to contribute to the parent project. So I'm going to hope that GitHub Desktop is going to guide me towards opening a pull request in the eventuality of time. So, so now at this point I'm going to kind of switch to making local changes. So I'm going to do this within a terminal. So now I'm in my code folder on this terminal, which hopefully is large enough for you to see. You can see eskip.github.io. That's what I just cloned. And I have here a notebook that I've been working on. It's called CO_fundamental. And that's a notebook that I would like to contribute. So right now, I'm actually just going to move CO fundamental into ESCIP notebooks, just like that. And you could do this in a variety of different ways. You know, if you were more comfortable dragging and dropping, of course, you could just do that. You could find this file in your Finder and drag and drop it into ESCIP .notebooks, right? But one way or another, you need to get that into ESCIP notebooks. Okay, and so this is just, I'm gonna just quickly look at this file and make sure, yeah, this is the thing that I wanted. Okay, great, awesome. So this is the file that I want to include. So that sort of takes care of the editing of the editing/adding of the notebook side. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open up toc.yaml. And what I'm going to need to add to toc.yaml is the file name within notebooks. So what you can see is that in toc.yaml has a section called notebooks, and there are chapters under that notebook, under that notebook's caption, and each chapter is a file. And so if I want to add a new chapter, I just need to add the file that I added. So I'm going to call this CO fundamental. And you'll notice that all of these are the file names of the notebooks that are in the notebooks folder. They do not have the extension .ipynb, so leave off the extension, just the file name. Okay, so that is what I wanted to add. So I am going to save and close this file. And that's all I want to do. So the next step in my workflow, if you remember, is going to be to push my changes to the fork repository. So I will go back to GitHub Desktop, and I see two changes here. Right, I see a new notebook called CO_fundamental, and I also see a new addition to the toc.yaml. So I'm going to make a comment. Added notebook CO_fundamental and updated toc. Commit to JBook. Push origin. Okay. So now what I can do is I can go back up to Foley Lab, and I see that I am one commit ahead of ESCIP JBook. So what I can do now is click Contribute, and this is going to give me the option to open a pull request. So let me do this, open a pull request, and here I can add some details. So okay, so this is a short description of what this notebook does. I can suggest different reviewers. Maybe I'll pick on David. So yeah, let me pick on David, our fearless leader, and I'm going to create the pull request. And that's the last step that one has to do before it's reviewed. So now at this stage, right, it's over in the hands of one of the reviewers, or one or more of the reviewers on the GitHub, on the ESCIP side. And so they may review your notebook and give you suggested edits. And in that stage, right, so there's a couple of things that will determine how you learn about those edits. So if you have your GitHub connected to your email, then comments that tag you in this pull request are going to send you notifications through your email. If you don't have that set up, you may have to just check back periodically to see if any comments have been made. So that's kind of the process. So hopefully that all makes sense, and these instructions were helpful. And if not, please reach out to let us know. And we will do our very best to help you to contribute your great content to our project. Thank you so much.